Hey everybody, welcome to Culinary Characters Unlocked. I'm David Page. On this episode, a married couple running a neighborhood restaurant in Charleston. He's the chef. She handles front of the house and a great wine program. There are no white tablecloths. In fact, they say what they're doing is not fine dining. But they did just win a Michelin star. Here are Bethany and Dano Heinze. Chef Bethany, how are you? Thanks for doing this.
We're great.
Thank you for having us. It's an honor to be talking with you.
So a Michelin star for a neighborhood restaurant.
Who would have thought it?
How's it feel?
It feels unreal, honestly. We didn't open this restaurant to do anything but just make ourselves happy by creating a business in our favorite city in the country. To get any accolades at all is, wasn't part of the plan, but is very welcomed and very humbled by the Michelin star for sure.
Absolutely.
Did you think it could happen? I mean, you knew Michelin was doing a guide to the South, so come on, were you hoping maybe?
We were definitely hoping.
Yeah.
We found out that they were kind of in town. There's all these whispers and people kind of internally in our industry knowing that there were inspectors and that the guide was happening. And then they made the public announcement that they were expanding to the American South. So it was definitely like, oh, wow, are we eligible? And then, if we are, obviously put our best foot forward. And not that we weren't doing that before, but it definitely creates a little bit something to strive for, I guess, without changing what we were doing.
Yeah, the whole idea was to be able to, if we were going to attain it, to do what we were doing before we knew the Michelin guide was coming. So pulled it off.
But when you saw somebody dining alone, did you think to yourself, maybe?
A few times. We're a pretty busy restaurant, to be honest. So, we're packing in a bunch of people every night. We have a bunch of solo diners all the time and neighborhood regulars, but also a bunch of travelers in the restaurant too. So the biggest thing that we put forward with our front of house and even in the kitchen, it's like every ticket that's rung in and leaves the kitchen needs to be consistent and the best it can be, instead of trying to fuss over or manipulate certain orders because we think they might be part of Michelin. It was like, let's just focus on everything being solid and everyone in the dining room having the best experience we can offer. That was before this happened too, but I think kind of maintaining that mentality moving forward now that we have the star as well, it's like we want everyone to have the best time and the best food. And I think the consistency is what we really focus on.
Yeah, we didn't really even honestly know that the single diner thing until we got closer to the finish line.
That the inspectors dine alone.
Right.
Yeah.
A lot of them do. Yeah. And I don't know if you're familiar with this, but there's a new TV show out that kind of dives into the process a little bit. So we were watching that, a month or so ago before the ceremony happened and got a little bit more intel into what it is. But before that, it's pretty shrouded in mystery. You don't really know what the whole process of Michelin is. And I think they like to keep it that way. So yeah. We try not to get in our heads about it.
You mentioned consistency. As I understand it, that's one of their big keys.
Totally. Yeah. But, I think that as a restaurant and as restaurateurs, since we opened, that's been a focus. And I can say with some of our peers who received the same 1-star accolade as us, we can see that kind of focus in them as well. So yeah, it's definitely amazing to have someone recognize that.
Well, as you know, I ate at your restaurant recently, and I can honestly tell you, I have eaten at some of the greatest restaurants all over the world. This was one of the finest meals I've ever had.
Thank you, David.
Thank you.
You guys totally knocked it out of the park.
Wow. Thank you very much.
I actually mentioned to my wife at one point, I looked at the table and I said, and we were there with a couple of dear friends. I looked at the table, I said, Michelin 1-star, no tablecloth, comfortable neighborhood feel. Renowned food writer Robert Moss wrote that your restaurant renewed his hope for fine dining. Are you fine dining? There's no tablecloth. You got a chalkboard menu. It's a pretty casual room.
Totally.
Are you fine dining?
I think no, I don't think we're fine dining. I think that the whole idea when we opened the restaurant is that as a neighborhood restaurant, everybody's comfortable inside the space, whether you're wearing flip flops and a t-shirt or you're going to a wedding and have a tuxedo on. I think that we've succeeded in that. It's a comfortable space. It's a warm space. It's just meant to be for everybody. We don't like the stuffiness and the quietness of white tablecloth restaurants. We just like to feel a little bit loosened up when we eat food. Then we at the same pace, like we're trying to serve food that's elevated as well. Balancing the two is kind of was our main goal.
Yeah, I mean,
from the get-go.
We met working in fine dining, and Dano spent many years working in a very intense fine dining environment, and I was working front of house in the same setting, and I think we pulled what we loved from that experience, but left behind what he just mentioned with like that tight kind of feeling in the room. We want people to relax. Like we wanted to create a restaurant that we want to go to and exist in. And I think that setting spoke a lot more to us, but there's a million little details kind of folded into the fabric of what we created. And some of those are fine dining touches, but I don't think we like to be defined as fine dining.
Well, you talk about making the place comfortable. Bethany, I did not realize when you so graciously greeted us and seated us that I was being seated by the co-owner of the restaurant.
I'm hiding in plain sight.
I want to talk in great detail about the restaurant in a bit, but first I want to talk about the path each of you took. Chef, let me start with you. Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Vero Beach, Florida, a small town on the east coast of Florida, about 3 hours north of Miami.
Was it a foodie family?
No, not a foodie family.
I hate the word foodie, but I use it.
My parents worked several jobs, and we were more apt to buy 29-cent McDonald's cheeseburgers and freeze them and put them in the microwave for dinner. But we did enjoy when, Dad would get to make barbecue chicken or whatever he ever got to cook, but it was never the main focus in our household.
And when you went out to eat, if you went out to eat?
Yeah, it was more like Ryan's, the kind of buffet style restaurants and Shoney's, where it's like you can get anything you want. Those are the kind of restaurants we were excited about growing up.
So how did you develop an interest in food as a career?
In high school, my senior year, became a server at a high-end country club.
Just for some extra cash, not because you...
Yeah, you make really good money in those places, especially for a 17, 18-year-old. And I really liked the chef, and I really liked the whole thing that was going on in the kitchen. I did the front of the house thing for probably 2 years, and then they finally talked me into going from making a lot of money for an 18-year-old kid to, making $11 an hour and becoming a dishwasher so that I could start learning how to use a knife and everything. And it was the easy transition for me because I hated kissing people's asses.
Yeah, so we're going to get you out of the front of the house.
Yeah. I'm not a people person. I am when I want to be, but not when I don't have to be.
You know what? I'm going to come back to that in 1 second. I want to keep these paths equal. So Bethany?
Yeah.
Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Columbus, Ohio, in a little suburb called Dublin, just outside the city. My family's all still there, very Midwestern roots. And my parents, before they moved back to Ohio to raise a family, had lived in Charleston before they had my brother and myself. So I grew up visiting their close friends here my whole life, who are basically family to me. And saw Charleston as my escape out of my Midwestern childhood. So I found the College of Charleston, and that was sort of my ticket to move down here.
But before you got to that,
yeah,
what I've read is that there was a lot of food activity in your household.
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, both my parents love food. My mom's a phenomenal chef. My dad loves cooking as well. So yeah, I mean, the kitchen is always like the heartbeat of my home.
What kind of food was it growing up?
A lot of German, Eastern European heritage with my roots. So a few dishes come to mind. My mom makes this dish called chicken paprikash. So it's like a paprika braised chicken with spatzel. And my dad makes stuffed cabbage rolls as often as he can, and handmade pierogies and things like that. Very homey, but very heartfelt cooking.
So did you do any work in the culinary world on the way up?
Not in the culinary world. My mom owned and still owns a barber shop in my hometown.
Not a lot of cooking in the barber shop.
Not a lot of cooking. She cooked at home, but she was a businesswoman, and I learned service from her, and I was, sweeping up hair and checking out the customers at the front desk my whole high school, before it was legal for me to even be working, and was in there helping, and I loved work. So she definitely had the service industry stamp on me. But food was more about home life and then the occasional special occasion restaurant.
We'll be right back. Back to the chef. So they get you into the kitchen for 22 cents an hour.
22 cents an hour.
When did it click? When did you say, I want to do this?
Let's see. I left that, actually got fired from that position after I got into the kitchen because I got caught smoking pot by the herb garden.
That's why they call it the herb garden.
Well, it seems totally reasonable to smoke pot by the herb garden. From there, I landed a position at a fine dining restaurant in Vero Beach, Florida, and worked for some really talented chefs, Carol Bowers and Melissa, and they taught me everything from the bottom to the top. And I worked there for 3 years, and that's where I really got passionate about it and started seeing it as a career. From there, I went to Johnson & Wales in Miami.
Culinary school.
Did a short 11-month program. I'm not really a school guy. At the same time, I worked for Norman Van Aken, whose flagship restaurant, Norman's, was a big James Beard award-winning restaurant in the late 90s, early 2000s, and got to work there. And that's really where I got to see a real fine dining restaurant that did everything from scratch and got whole animals and made foie gras torchons. And that's where I really knew that that's what I was going to do for the rest of my life.
What'd you do after that?
Well, I left there. I staged.
You didn't get fired for smoking pot this time?
No, it's a little past the pot by then. I left there and I staged at some restaurants in New York City. I staged at some restaurants in California, San Francisco, Orange County, and then I staged at a restaurant called McCrady's that I had read about on a blog.
In Charleston?
Yep. Read about Sean Brock.
It was his restaurant.
It was his restaurant. He had just taken it over about a year.
And for anyone who doesn't know, he's a hugely influential chef.
Yes. I saw what they were doing there, and they were doing a mixture of basically the two highest regarded restaurants then were these two avant-garde restaurants that were kind of playing off of El Bulli in Spain, WD-50 and Alenia, and it was a cross between those two restaurants, and I just fell in love with it. I couldn't believe it. I was seeing food like that getting done in Charleston, South Carolina. So I skipped California, I skipped New York, and I worked there for 9 years with Sean.
Was that your real culinary education?
Yeah, absolutely. Sean, I started there as a line cook. I became a sous chef, and then I became kind of Sean's traveling roadie, and we traveled and did guest chef dinners and festivals outside of the country, inside like all over the place. I mean, we were on the road for 3 years straight together. Not only did we get to cook and see other cities and restaurants and meet other chefs, but also get to eat at these places and make relationships with these people. And it's one of the best opportunities I've ever had in my life. Definitely, that was kind of the turning point of going from a sous chef that can manage people to a head chef that can create food and create a team and carry out a vision. And that's kind of where it started clicking for me. And McCrady's is a big restaurant. It was, there's 2 private dining facilities upstairs and a 100-seat restaurant downstairs. So it was a big job for me when I was like 30 years old.
And it's in Charleston.
Yeah, it was.
And somebody else has moved to Charleston to go to college. So let's pick that story up.
So I moved to Charleston and kind of knew that I wanted to be in the hospitality industry in some way. There's a hospitality and business kind of dual degree with the College of Charleston, and carried that on for 4 years. Got really deeper into food and beverage through college jobs, working at No Frills bars. And I worked at a resort for a few years, bartending a little tiki bar. But yeah, I had a great time.
Was it always bartending or front of house for you?
Yeah, for me, yes. Never in the kitchen. I'm still not trusted with a knife. I cut myself almost every time I hold one. But I love being in the restaurant space and just always been infatuated with it and the dance that is the dining room. And yeah, I fell in love with the cocktail world for a while and still love it today. And then got really introduced to wine a little bit later on and took that seriously. But during your college education, it's not really encouraged to dive into the restaurant world as a business. It's more of like a second job or it's secondary for people, even in my educational path. And so I always thought that was interesting. So by the end of it, everyone's going off to work in hotels or events or more kind of like corporate world positions, but I just loved the restaurant world. So decided to kind of take it seriously, if you will, after I graduated. And that's when I applied to work at McCrady's. Yeah. And that's where our story starts.
It was fate.
It was fate.
Okay, so what were you hired to do at McCrady's?
Everyone, kind of front and back, when you were hired there, you started as a server assistant, and that's your training, and you have to work your way up, no matter if you're coming in as a manager or whatever. My goal when I started was to work behind the bar, but they still put you on the dining room floor and you're resetting the tables, crumbing and offering bread service to everyone, and you gain your chops and really understand the food and the systems. So I did that for a few months straight, and then eventually started training behind the bar. And at the time, that cocktail program was really reflecting what they were doing in the kitchen, and was very fine-tuned, detailed cocktails with a lot of kind of culinary influence and technique. So I kind of fell in love with that at the time as well. And so over my 3 years there, kind of worked my way up to eventually being the lead bartender, bar manager.
You met this chef guy there, right?
We met a little bit before I started at a bar, but then I started and the rest is history.
She was in the dining room interviewing, and I was like, oh boy, what are you doing here?
We had butterfly eyes at each other.
Had you gone out yet?
No.
So who made the move?
I guess I did. We met at a dive bar, so
yeah, our after hours watering hole made it a little easier, but we kind of just had this magnetic pull to each other and eventually just let it happen. I had like a somewhat secret relationship when we first started going out with each other, and that didn't last very long.
And how long until you got married?
How long?
5 years?
5 years or so? Yeah, I want to say
like 4.
You were in Charleston for all of that time?
No, we dated in Charleston for about 2 years, and then we moved to Los Angeles. So, kind of wrapping up our time at McCrady's, we both had an itch to move to a bigger city and just kind of get a new experience. And so we thought about a few places, and then Dano was doing an event with Sean in LA for a big chef event out there, and called me and had just gotten off my shift and was like, I think I love it here. And I think it could be a really cool city to give a shot. So I literally booked a plane ticket to go out and visit with him while he was still out there working this event. And we stuck around for a couple days and checked out LA. And that was it. We decided to make the move a few months later. So that's kind of where the next chapter of our story together started.
So who'd you work for out there, both of you?
Dano had known 2 guys named John Shook and Vinny DiTolo, who have a restaurant group out there, and got in touch with them. And they were like, cool, let's hang out when you guys get out here. They offered Dano to do a pop-up dinner at their flagship Animal, sort of like a welcome to LA thing. And they put us up. And after the pop-up was a great success, they essentially offered us jobs on the spot, just like, we'll figure it out. When you guys get out here, let us know. And it was perfect timing for me. They had a GM leaving Animal at the time. So I slid right into her shoes and took over that position. And then Dano became their sort of like right-hand man, culinary guy.
Like I got to be John and Vinny's third wheel.
Yeah.
This was a nose-to-tail restaurant?
Yeah, Animal's, an institution, I think, in the history of American dining, and especially like a time and place in LA, was at the forefront of nose-to-tail cooking for sure. So they call themselves an American restaurant. There's not like a culinary definer outside of that, but it was very like creative restaurant that did a lot of offal and, like interesting ingredients and a lot of global flavor combinations. So it was a super creative space. The restaurant was very minimalist itself, and the focus was all about the plate, which was definitely like an era, I feel like, in dining history. And then their partner, Helen Johannesson, is a very prominent wine figure in LA. In the country, and her wine program was really influential on me as well.
Chef, how did your time there affect your cooking philosophy? What'd you learn? What'd you do?
So I kind of dipped my toes in their restaurants a little bit, but we really got deep on stuff that chefs from fine dining restaurants don't usually do. Very high volume stuff. We consulted SoFi Stadium, 26 concession stands, 4 different concepts, and we created a whole farm to table from Santa Monica Farmers Market to the airplane Delta Airlines program. That was all Delta One stuff.
Lots of catering.
Lots of very Hollywood catering stuff.
Underlying all of this, was there some food philosophy? Was there some ethos that you ended up taking away from this?
I'd say business was a big part of it for me. I think that's kind of where we learned and got our kind of like what I like to say, we got our business degree there, and both of us did, because Bethany running Animal and then helping Helen do her wine, but me also kind of like figuring out budgets and R&Ding things to tailor to these larger scaled concepts. It's interesting because in restaurants, you're plating maybe 5 plates, 10 plates at a time. And, these things are scaled to do thousands and thousands at a time. So you have to look at things differently. You can still keep things nice and do scale, but it's definitely an art.
Yeah.
Back in a moment. During this period of time, Bethany, as you were developing your wine expertise, didn't you go to France for a while?
I did. Yeah. I took a little sabbatical. I really wanted to work a harvest, and it was sort of like a perfect timing. I had just helped them open John and Vinny's second location, which has now become the restaurateur's like flagship. So they had one location when we moved out there, and now they have 7? So at the time it was like, all right, 1 moving into 2, and I was kind of on the team helping them figure out expansion and a lot of logistics and planning. So after that restaurant had opened, things were smooth. It was a perfect time for me to kind of take a little pause.
I have a picture in my head of like Lucille Ball stomping grapes. What did you do out there?
A little bit of that, a lot of sorting grapes. Harvest is wild. It's like the most intense physical labor that I've ever done, to be honest. The second you wake up at 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning, the team assembles, you have a quick coffee, and then the team goes out to pick grapes by hand. It was a natural hand harvested wine producer. And then they bring the grapes back, and all day you're sorting, using the machinery to press the grapes. And then, depending on the wine you're making, different fermentation techniques and things like that. And then a ton of cleaning. We're basically like the deckhands of a winery for a few weeks. And it was one of the best experiences of my life. It was so special and really kind of just opened my eyes about the process of making wine. And I think if anyone can do it in their life, I highly recommend it.
She literally fell asleep on the phone after I think you're about a week in. She fell asleep on the phone.
Yeah,
she was so tired from it. It was like 18-hour days.
Yeah, it was intense, but it was great. Highly worth it.
Okay, so you come back, you get a job as the general manager at a bakery cafe in Venice Beach?
Yeah, so there's a little kind of gap in between that where I was back on the John and Vinny's team in their catering event world, boots on the ground, like running these huge events. And then something called COVID happened and the event world was flatlined, kind of recalibrated, and then was hired on at Justa, which is a really iconic place in Venice Beach, which is where we were living. And it was this kind of like perfect next step for me. I could ride my little scooter to work in the morning and manage this new operation, which is an all-day cafe with a wholesale bakery, a ton of different arms to the business. We implemented full-service dining while I was there because everything was outside in LA. So we made this massive patio, garden, dining room and had to train a staff that was used to counter service how to wait tables, but it was magical. Juice is a really incredible place, so I loved it.
And then one day, you're both living in paradise, having all of these wonderful experiences and developing the chops in the side of the business that so many would-be restaurateurs don't develop, and then their restaurants fail. And then you looked at each other and said, let's get the hell out of LA?
Pretty much.
Well, no. We love LA. We miss LA in a lot of ways. We created so many amazing relationships in and out of the business. But I think from the moment we moved to LA, we had an itch to do our own thing and open our own restaurant. And we actually had looked at spaces in that span of time, that 5 years, several spaces to do our own thing there. It just never felt like home.
Well, how could you afford the real estate?
Well, that's a big part of it too.
Yeah, the equation out there is tough, especially for a restaurant the size of Vern's and kind of the concept that we had always dreamed of, which is what we ended up opening. To do that model in LA is pretty tough. Going back to John and Vinny, who we had worked for, they're continuing to be amazing mentors in our careers, in our lives. And they would pen and paper, let's look at numbers and map out a business plan. And it just became more and more clear that what we wanted was pretty difficult to pull off there.
So you decide we're going to go back to Charleston.
Yep.
How'd you make it happen? I mean, you started with pop-ups, right?
Yeah, so we moved back with a pretty strong one-track mind of we're opening something. We're not going to come back to Charleston and accept roles in people's restaurants. That's going to just tie us down longer. We were ready and we felt very prepared coming off those 5 years in LA and learning all that we had. We had a pretty solid business plan built and visuals, and we really fine-tuned the space and the feel that we wanted to create.
In a nutshell, what did you want to create?
We wanted a cozy bistro. Yeah. So we had like the neighborhood thing in our head. So we did look at a lot of different spaces. We were pretty hungry just to open something. So we explored like all avenues of a 150-seat restaurant outside of the city or a place on King Street that would be all day, And so like we were flexible on what exactly it was, but we knew kind of aesthetically and the food to an extent what we wanted to do.
And the food in your mind was going to be what, chef?
I don't know. I wasn't able to explain it. And we had some local writer friends in town that were asking me what it was. And I was like, I don't know. We're going to make everything from scratch. I mean, people still ask me today and I'm like, well, we make everything from scratch. We do pastas, a whole roasted chicken and other stuff. We're like a neo-modern bistro, I think, at this point.
And there was definitely this like undertone of a California influence, I will say, just living in that city, in that state for so long.
The influence being what?
The attention to ingredients, I think, is like so strong there. And it's what California cuisine is. Like by textbook, they have such beautiful produce and they take really good care of it when it comes to serving it in restaurant spaces and not overcomplicating or over manipulating the food. That definitely shows in his food now compared to what he was doing at McCrady's. That influence, I see it pretty strongly. And I think like there's touches of that in our restaurant for sure.
Okay, so you come back, you want to place your own, you know what it's going to be, you're looking for real estate, you start with pop-ups.
A little bit, yeah. We had such a community of friends in Charleston that offered to host us, and it seems like a good way to kind of get back into the city and understand what people get hyped on. So we collaborated with some people, and our friends were opening this natural wine bar that wanted to do a pop-up, and that was a cool fit to do a little event together. And then at Berkeley's, another neighborhood spot, they're awesome humans and offered to let us take over their restaurant for the night. And then on the side, we were doing a lot of like private, not a lot, but as much as we could, private dinners and tried to make a little income. No one pays you to get a restaurant open. So we
worked in our friends' restaurants, Malagon and Chez Nous, and
they offered us positions to kind of fill in their schedules, front and back of house. So yeah, we made it work, but the whole time we were like really stuck on getting this restaurant open.
And you found a place in a residential neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
A small, lovely old space. Was it hard to get financed?
Well, we were lucky enough to meet 4 beautiful human beings who helped us out and didn't take stake in our business, and were essentially angel investors, and that's how we did it. They liked
saw
what we were
the vision
do,
and wanted to be a part of it.
Yeah.
So when'd you open?
We opened 2022, July, in the dead of summer in Charleston.
Little steamy down there at that time.
Little steamy, but sometimes you just, once you sign a lease, the clock's ticking and you want to open as quick as you can. Because we did it pretty scrappy and we took out like a financial loan essentially instead of having like bigger equity partners, it was really important that we stuck to a budget and did it as low of a financial lift as we needed. We signed the lease in November of 2021 and we opened 8 months later, which is a pretty quick turnaround. But we lucked out taking over a space that had previously been a restaurant. We didn't change the footprint too much. We just really had to remodel the kitchen and do some aesthetic changes. So yeah, as fast as we could.
We redid the tables ourselves, and I got
sourced a bunch of furniture.
I got inside the grease trap and fixed the grease trap.
That's always a good place to hang out. You want to be in the...
It was an amazing, unforgettable experience.
Yeah, I tell me about it. I'll... Were you a hit right off the bat? Did you have to find your footing? Were you happy with what you were doing? I'll just throw out a bunch of questions.
I would say we were a hit. We then were doing pretty much the same volume now with half the staff.
And brunch.
We did brunch right off the first week. I wrote the menu at 2:30 in the morning and we came back in at 6 to start brunch with what we had left over from the night before. Like she said, we did everything very scrappy. Everybody in town told us, you're going to be so busy. You're going to be so busy. And like, you can't really rest your laurels on that. You have to kind of see for yourself before you hire double the amount of staff. Or we used all the old kitchen equipment in the restaurant. Like we were very scrappy. So I would say, yeah, we were happy, but we just kind of, since day one, kind of been slowly making everything in the space better and really focusing every day on making things better.
Okay, chef, what are you cooking?
What am I cooking right now?
Well, on any given day, I mean, your menu changes all the time. I assume it's seasonally based.
Yeah. Right now, we're really focusing on large protein stuff, whole deboned fish that are grilled over charcoal, and a Barnsley chop, which is like a whole cut of the saddle.
Is that lamb?
Yeah, sorry, lamb Barnsley chop.
I think my wife and another member of our party had that when we were in. It was
I think you did too.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. Best lamb I've ever had. It's phenomenal.
Best lamb I've ever had. I stole some from across the table.
And we work directly with those farmers in Kentucky.
Okay, but what did you do to that piece of lamb that made it so damn good?
Grilled it over charcoal, slow and low.
In the sauce.
And the sauce.
I shared the American Wagyu strip steak for two that you were offering that night. And I actually asked Bethany, maybe it was our server. It was pink from side to side in a way that is very hard to achieve because obviously the exterior of meats tend to get weller done, he said grammatically incorrectly. I asked if it was sous vide and was told, no, it's over. How the hell do you do that? It was unbelievable.
We definitely have like a timing factor set up with it. With that piece of meat, we cook that different. That's like very heavy bursts over the charcoal. We sear it, get a really big burst from the charcoal, a lot of heat, rest it, re-sear it, rest it, and then flip it over, sear it, so on and so forth until it gets this really nice crust on it. And then we glaze it with a reduction of tamari, house-made hot mustard. It's basically like a teriyaki on crack.
How do you come up with this?
I love umami. So that's like anything with umami. We use a lot of umami ingredients in the restaurant. Lots of like misos and shoyus and anything, Parmesan stock in our food. So I just think about how I'd want things to taste. And so that glaze kind of really just captures not only like the crust of the steak, but the fat inside the steak, some of the sugar, and it caramelizes on it. So you got to have all that when you get into a bite of it. So it's kind of got texture on both sides of it. And it's really nice and supple in the middle. And you have that fat and that crunch, and you have all these things happening with just one bite of steak.
Well, it's interesting you talk about caramelizing the fat. I generally am not a Wagyu fan because I find it too fatty. I jumped in on the order because my friend said, let's try it. And I said, okay, fine. It blew me away. And you get that? It's American Wagyu from, I think you said, Kentucky?
Yep. It's also, it's only, it's about a 3-mile drive from our lamb farmer. We got introduced by our Wagyu farmer to our lamb farmer. And so we work with them every week.
You had a pasta dish with rabbit?
Yep.
That also was extraordinary. I mean, everything was extraordinary. Do you have a hard time selling rabbit to people?
No.
I mean, Americans were a little squeamish.
Yeah, we were worried about that at first because we're basically like, that dish is kind of like a play on, it's like cacio e pepe and chicken and dumplings, kind of all in the same thing. So, and those rabbits come from South Carolina as well. But no, that's probably our highest selling dish over the last 3.5 years.
Well, tell me about some more of your dishes.
So pastas are all made in-house. The campanelli we make through an extruder, but the other two pastas are made by hand. Our menu's kind of set up so that the first part of the menu is snacky kind of stuff. We have our house-made bread that we made with a sourdough starter that actually came from our sous chef Lucas's family. And that's kind of the thing that we like everybody to order with our tuna with Calabrian chilies and our escargot with tarragon pickled ramp butter. And
well, no, let's talk about the escargot for a minute because it's been written up everywhere. First of all, it's not in the shell, right?
No, it's not in the shell. They're big burgundy, beautiful burgundy snails. We tried a lot of different snails, and these ones are just fantastic. We actually skewer them and grill them over charcoal, with a little bit of olive oil and salt.
With Gruyere?
Yeah, Gruyere gets topped on after, but we make a butter sauce with a lot of pickled wild ramps, lots of tarragon, lots of herbs, lots of lemon, and then we place the grilled escargot in the pool of butter, and then we cover it with Gruyere cheese. and then we melt it with a torch so that it blankets over the top of it.
Damn, we didn't have that. I really screwed up. That's in your little plates, I guess, to call it. You then have a huge section of, I guess, mostly vegetables. I had the farro. I've never said of farro, wow, that was good. It was unbelievable. It had kind of a sweetness to it. What the hell was in it?
Yeah, so it's actually a vegan dish, not on purpose, just because of the like kind of flavor profile we were going for. But we treat farro 2 different ways. We cook it the traditional way, like you would cook rice, but then we also overcook it and we dehydrate it and we fry it and it puffs and gets crispy.
Oh yeah, that's what I was going to guess you had done. We've talked about big proteins, and yet one of the reviews I read talked about how vegetable forward the restaurant is. What's the balance there?
We keep 3 to 4 vegetable dishes on the menu. We have 3 right now. Plus salads. It's almost half the menu is vegetables. I think vegetables are our favorite way to eat.
It goes back to like
California,
seasonality,
right?
And, yeah, like beautiful produce and working directly with the farmers in our area. And the format of the menu, you have that middle section that's pretty flexible with 2 salads, a few vegetables, a few pastas, and then the bottom of the menu is like larger protein heavy dishes. And so people kind of mix and match between the middle and the bottom section and sort of create their own menu, if you will. So it's like, if you want the big steak or the roast chicken or the fish dish, you can pair it with some of the seasonal vegetable dishes and salads in the middle, or a couple salads and pasta, however you want to play it. And the format just becomes really flexible to however you want to eat.
Obviously, you said the produce is local. Not everything on the menu is local. You have your chosen suppliers, but it raises the question, is local always better? And I would assume your answer is no.
We try to make local as good as possible. I mean, we cook anything locally first that we're excited about, if it's up to the quality that we want it to be, or, the flavor profile. Local is better in a way of creating community and helping local economy and having relationships in town. But we do still love Japanese uni and turbos from England. Sea scallops. So I think we are a very local restaurant, but we do like to dip our toes into things that we're excited about outside of that as well. But I think there's a balance. It's kind of like a 10-90, 20-80 of like local 80, 20, 10,
They said there would be no math, chef. Bethany, let's talk booze. First of all, I was delighted that you're one of the few bars I've been in recently that carries a Verna, which is an Amaro and my favorite alcohol on earth.
Nice.
So thank you.
You're welcome.
But you have a lauded wine program. How'd you put it together? What is it? What's the point you're after?
In a nutshell, we open without a spirits license. Charleston has really antiquated laws, and we're 300 feet to a church, door to door. So essentially, you can have a beer and wine license, but the spirits is a whole different thing. So we open without it, which really kind of created the confines of a wine program. And we did some like wine-based cocktails and things like that. But wine being a passion of mine, it was more of like an excitement and kind of creating this wine list that can fit physically in our building because we're very small. So we had to be able to store the wine and also offer a variety of things that people are excited about. So my passion lies with the small guys and the small producers and family-owned people who are actually farming their own fruit and producing the wine by hand, because that was the experience that I had had in France and had really struck a chord. So we lean in that direction and have a lot of purely natural wines, but the baseline for all of the wine on our menu is organic farming, and that's really important to me. And, no additives, no mass-produced big label stuff. It's all really beautifully handmade wine.
All domestic?
No, pretty global, a variety between domestic and mostly European, but a variety. It's like adventurous, just like the food is, and different flavors from around different influences. But I really focus on the right variety between classic profiles that people love and are familiar with, but also introducing them to new things, new regions, new grapes, and kind of making them step out of their boxes.
And when I order or want to order the traditional big, bold red cab for that steak, what's the alternative you suggest to me?
We do have that, but they're made by like very teeny producers and you won't recognize the label, which throws people off and disarms them. But I lean more like Italian and Spanish in that section of the menu too, and getting really beautiful older Italian reds like Sagrantino or Aglianicos, things that have strong tannins, even some really beautiful Barberas, a Rioja Tempranillos. But yeah, we have what people want. It's just within our ethos and within the program that we've created. So you can kind of rest assured that it's made really well.
And how often, when you're the person opening and pouring the wine or recommending the wine, do you come up against the old sexist expectation that this isn't a woman's job?
Almost every day. I would say it's more because, I'm at the front door, people think I'm the host, and then I'm at the table talking wine. And it's funny to watch people's perceptions change. It's all perception. They don't know me or who I am. And I think it's fun to kind of show people that it's not always about the cover, and I think maybe that ties into the wine program as a whole on a philosophical sense. It's what's inside that matters.
Let's pursue this more broadly. A few years ago, the restaurant industry had a highly publicized reckoning with misogyny and sexism.
Mm-hmm.
I assume it's better as an industry.
Yeah.
How much better?
Yeah, my path and working with Helen, shout out to her. She's pretty anti-establishment when it comes to wine education, and everyone to each their own. I love some of the certifications and programs that are out there from an educational sense, but I think a lot of that misogyny stemmed from this patriarchal system that was in place, and that you had to have this pin that was given to you.
But beyond wine.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the restaurant industry as a whole.
Sorry, I was going down a deep rabbit hole. You saved me. In restaurants, I think that we've created a safe space that we don't give in to that behavior. And I think it has shifted in a more general sense. I feel it. We're also, again, not in fine dining. Like we said from the beginning, we don't want to be in that world. And I think there's a separation sometimes of certain settings, and there's still some pretty, antiquated behavior that happens in a more high caliber setting that I don't want to be a part of. And I know my team doesn't either. So yeah, I think it's more of a choice of like, what do you allow in your space?
What's going on with the restaurant biz? Prices are up. Patron traffic is down. You could easily say there's a crisis. What do you see?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting time in our industry in many directions, but I think it's more of a shift on how people are dining, where they're dining, and the business is inevitably getting harder. Prices do have to go up because everything in our country is going up. So it would be unfair to hold our prices steady while the cost of living for everyone else, everything else goes up. But I think it's going to get trickier and trickier to create the right formula, I'll say.
Chef?
Food for us, cost-wise, even buying stuff as locally as we do, carrots sometimes are as much a pound as a whole fish would be, so, and rightfully so. And we don't mind giving that money to our local farmers, fishermen, etc. And I think passing it on to the guests, we've been lucky to be able to create a menu that is kind of in the middle ground. We have options that are on the higher end price point, but you can also come into Vern's and have the rabbit campanelli and a salad and a bread and get out for $50. And I think that's kind of plug and play with the way we formatted our menu so that a line cook at X, Y, and Z restaurant can come in and a business executive can come in and they both can create their own experience. So I think that's our menu format. For us, the accessibility to everyone in that restaurant is just as important as anything else.
You came with a vision. Did you fulfill it? Are you happy?
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. There's always more, right? But in the restaurant, I think it's been a dream come true. The Michelin star thing's
beyond our
wildest dreams.
I have a lot of moments in the dining room where like the music's just right and the glow of the space and we're buzzy, and I pinch myself still, 3.5 years in. It's crazy to have something in the depths of your brain and then to watch it come to fruition and to then watch it resonate with other people. So yeah, it's a dream come true.
Yeah, it's wild. It's a living, breathing machine. Yeah.
And going forward, future plans?
Definitely have, an itch to do more in the right capacity. We got so much stuff thrown at us in our first year of like, what are you doing? Here are these offers. And we're trying to be patient and methodical and really make sure we make a very conscious decision what we decide to create next.
Are you feeling pressure to hold the star?
Yeah, definitely. I think there's, it's funny because people have perspectives. Mine is we keep doing what we're doing, but we got to keep elevating just like we have from day one. The details can become finer without losing focus on what we've created. 2026 for us is keep pushing the envelope, whether it be with creativity or product or service, while keeping things seemingly the way that they were when we got the star.
Well, keep having fun. Keep living the dream.
That's the goal. Yeah.
Agreed.
I gotta repeat, dining at Vern's was just extraordinary. And meeting you guys has been an absolute delight.
Likewise.
Congratulations on all the good things. Keep having success. And thank you so much for talking with me today. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, David.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, really awesome. Thank you. Come back and get the escargot.
I will. Bethany and Dano Heinze on Culinary Characters Unlocked. I'm David Page. I'll see you next time. And check out the Culinary Characters Unlocked Substack.